Regina, when you think about your father, is this something that happens every day? How is it, the presence of Moreno in your life? How is that?
He was my life. He was the only, until he died. When I lost my father, when he died, all I wanted to do was go with him. And I wrote a story, who will be there to catch me? I always thought he would be there to catch me. And many times he wasn't, because he spent so much time on his work. And he was involved with Zerka. And he had an affair with Zerka. And, and all my mother just was completely falling apart. And so he was my life. He was, even through my marriages, until he died. When he died, it was extremely painful for me, because he was no longer, first of all, when he died, he gave up eating, and it took him 2 months to die. And basically, he was just not there anymore. He was lost to me in many ways. And I begged him, to eat so you'll be strong again, and you'll survive. And he said, it's too late. It's time to, he knew he wanted to die at that point. Of course, I had my suspicions of why he wanted to die. I didn't know that Zerka was involved with another man, which was Merlin, but not involved. She wasn't involved, but there was a possibility of this. But she was there for him. She was there in the house. She had people to look after him. But when he died, it just was a terrible blow to me. And then my first marriage ended, my Indian marriage, where I was being abused, by this man. And when that ended, that was almost like that dying, and then my father died. It was terrible. Mm-hmm. So to go back to Beacon, I want to go back to Beacon because it was the house of secrets, and that's what I call it in my memoirs, because I was not allowed to go up to the hospital, and that's what I was fascinated with. I wanted to know about those people. I wanted to be friends with them. So, I remember that there was this one very important, all the time I felt like I was not accepted as in the rest of the town, because I was in the crazy house. Kids used to say I was in a nut factory. That's what they called where I lived. So I didn't have many friends. Mm-hmm. And so I started to befriend these people in the mental hospital. And, I had a very special friend. This is the one story I remember. There were many of them that I was fascinated by. And my father used to call the ones who were a little bit better focused. They didn't have such serious problems. He called them the nurses, like assistant nurses. He gave them a title, so they wouldn't feel like they were really the craziest ones. So, so these ones were like student nurses, he called them. So I guess this man was one of the student nurses. I was fast, so I snuck up there once. And this was at the time, actually, later on, when I don't think Gretel was living with us. No, but my mother found out what was happening with Zerka, and so she knew this affair was going on, and she was heartbroken. She just fell apart all the time, every day. She wasn't there for me. So I snuck up to the hospital to see this guy. Irving Israel Kramer was his name. He's a Jewish man. And I don't know exactly what kind of problem he had, but he used to sit up there in a chair. And he was funny. And so I snuck up the pathway to the hospital, into the back part of the hospital where the kitchen was. And that's where he was. And that's where they hung all the laundry. And so what he used to do was play this game with me where he would hide behind the laundry sheets, and then he would come out. Mm-hmm. Here I am. Here I am. Come here. So I would go over to him, and he would play little jokes with me. He would dance with me. He would show me some of the birds flying in the sky, and he'd pretend to be a bird. And I just loved him. So I would find ways to sneak up there to be with him. Now, of course, my father didn't know, because my father was Zerka was there then, part of the time. But I did find out she was there, because there was a third floor, anyway, of the hospital. So anyway, yeah, something was happening. I knew that, or my mother knew that. I didn't. But anyway, so one day I came up there, and he told me, he said, sit down, sit next to me. So I took one of the lawn chairs and sat next to him in back of the hospital. And he said, I'm writing a letter to President Roosevelt. I said, really? And he said, I'm going to write this letter, and then I want you to mail it to the president for me. Because I think there's a den of prostitution going on here. I didn't know what prostitution, so he explained to me, something's going on here that's not good, and I want the president to know. So I'm writing this letter that I'm incarcerated in a den of prostitution, signed Irving Israel Kramer. So I thought, my gosh, I was only about maybe 7 years old. So I looked at the letter. I could read a few of the words, but he said, you must give this to your father. You must, no, don't give it to your father. He said, no, don't give it to your father, no. Okay, you need to mail this to Roosevelt, okay? And I said, I still have to ask my parents to get a stamp. So anyway, I brought the letter. I remember bringing the letter home. And I think my mother and father were both there at the time. And so I gave the letter, I think, first to my mother. She started crying immediately. Uh-oh. Then I gave the letter to my father, and he laughed. And he said, yes, we'll send it to Roosevelt. Anyway, Roosevelt, he turned to my mother and said, Roosevelt's dead. He's not alive anymore. So I thought, oh, great, he's going to put a stamp on it and send it to Roosevelt. Well, the den of prostitution was that Zerka and my father had a room upstairs. Now, they may have been working there, I don't know. But my mother told me at one point she tried to get in, knock on the door of the room, and he just said, don't come in right now. I can't answer it. So something was going on, at that point. So that was my experience with patients. But I always liked to be with them, even though my father, didn't want me there. That's the timer.
Time to stop. Okay, let's stop
Okay.
for now.